Hey everybody, I'm Austin from Spur Design Garage. Welcome to the channel. Today in this video we're going to talk a little bit about why I think the Jaguar E-Type is one of the best car designs that's ever been created and why it's so challenging to get simplicity in design and not become overly complicated. Alright, so before we get into why I think the Jaguar E-Type is one of the best designs that's ever been created for car design and maybe industrial design in general, this is a quick side note for this drawing in particular. I'm doing a drawing of the Jaguar E-Type. It's part of a series of car journey portraits, which are these simple car design sketch style handmade drawings on high quality paper that I do myself. If you're interested in getting your own, they're completely customizable, and you can get them at the link in the description of this video. But I want to talk a little bit about complexity in design and how that can dilute a story or an icon, really. That, you know, the Jaguar E-Type I consider an icon, absolutely. You can think about other designs out there in the world that you immediately recognize, you immediately memorize in your head. You know, something like the Leaning Tower of Pisa is very, very quickly, you know, it's a rectangle that is slightly tilted, you know, more or less. That's kind of the main story of it. Of course, there's the arches, which form different details within that particular design, but the overall concept and the overall story is this idea, and anyone really would be able to remember that. If they were to be asked to draw that particular tower, they would immediately draw something very similar to what that particular tower looks like. You know, other examples that come to mind, the Coca-Cola bottle is this very organic swooping shape. There are ribs that kind of form the rest of it, you know, in creating a few more details. But again, the majority of people would understand what that particular Coke bottle looks like and be able to draw it from memory. The Jaguar E-Type is really similar to that. There's a lot of other cars out there that are in this category, but I think the E-Type is one of the best examples of simplicity in design and just keeping this main story very pure. You know, another way that you can think of a story is the simplicity or the kind of personality of a vehicle or a product or piece of architecture, or a character line sort of makes up, you know, a lot of people talk about character lines being the thing that you want to focus on in car design, but that's sort of a very loose way to describe the overall story of a particular design. You know, and the E-Type, really, its story is this large flowing volume around the wheels, these shapes that just curve around the wheels themselves. It has an oval grille. It's all laid out kind of perfectly, really. Everything feels like it's in the right place. The grille feels just large enough. The taillights feel like they're slotted in the exact right location. If you move them up or down, they'd be kind of in the wrong spot. It just wouldn't make sense. But you memorize this particular design so well because it's so simple. Even though there's a lot of little details, there's vents here, chrome pieces there, but the overall story itself of this flowing bodywork around the wheels is really the main story and the thing that makes it very memorable. And it's just slightly different than, you know, there's a lot of other vehicles out there from the time period that have this kind of flowing design, but I think it's just distinctive enough and slightly different to be an even more pure design. You know, previously, I think yesterday I saw a previous gen Honda CR-V front end, and it's totally different. It's a very clever design in a lot of ways. It's really nicely laid out. In general, it's a nice design that makes you think it's a reliable vehicle, and there's some interest in the details and in the shape, but it's very complicated. There's a lot of moving lines on it that flow into each other and intersect each other. a lot of different volumes that are kind of intersecting. And it's not a design that you would think about or be able to memorize within 10 or 15 years. It's so complicated that you're just not really going to be able to remember the pure story of it. And it's really difficult to come up with a really simple idea or story or character line like the Jaguar E-Type, or dare I say something like the Nissan Cube, and keep it that simplistic yet interesting. You know, it's this fine line of making something that's distinctive enough and new enough and novel enough, yet not overly complicating it, like a lot of designs really do. I do this series of what I call redesign doodles on my Instagram, and just recently did one of the Model T. So I updated the Model T and redesigned it as a sort of compact adventure SUV. And, you know, I was kind of intrigued by the initial sketch. I thought there was some interesting elements there, but there definitely was a lot of complexities that diluted the main story, which I think was this kind of rectangular shape that had the round radius on it. You can see that in the vents around the wheel, the overall roof shape, some of those kind of surfaces. But you can see how, you know, the grille form intersects oddly with the side vents around the wheels. There's just a lot of complexities that need to be solved before it's a really, you know, solid design. And again, all those complexities of the forms and the shapes kind of colliding with each other dilute this purity of the story. So, you know, when you're creating a design, you got to keep crafting to make an interesting yet simple story. Not to say there isn't room in the world for maximalism. There's really a difference between maximalism and confusing. I think you can have a maximalist design that has this sort of pure story that people will be able to remember within 50 years or longer than that. And I think there's a lot of architecture out in the world that was created many centuries ago that people associate with maximalism, and yet is still a very memorable design. But the idea being that every detail is flowing into the same story. You know, on the Jaguar E-Type, for instance, all of the details and the vents feel like they're just playing into this main story of these flowing character lines around this volume of the wheels, and all of the shapes and all of the so-called second read details where you're getting a little bit closer to the vehicle. They're all fitting into that flowing story. You know, the side windows, for instance, have this flowing character about them that really feels like it's fitting the same story. And all the little details, the vents, the chrome trim, these so-called third read details, when you get really, really close to the vehicle, again, are just feeding into this main story. And so that's the reason why I think it's such a great design and has lasted such a long time. And so, you know, if you're creating your own designs, product or car design related, just think about what your main story is and how you can feed into that main story with all the details and all the other elements. Make sure that the other details are not competing with the main story itself, or the main volumes are not competing with the main story itself. Think really about what the most pure and simplistic version of your design might look like, and strive for something like that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to leave you with the rest of this drawing carried out on this paper. And if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That's really going to help me grow my channel and continue to make more videos like this.